you mentioned you want to start a school one day.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is one thing that most people get wrong? Like most people in the education system right now, like teachers, administrators, even students. What do you think is like something that they get wrong by the education system?
I think that the goal of education should be to teach kids to love themselves. And that's it. But that should be our primary goal.
It's really interesting.
It's really different.
It's a new answer.
Wow. Even I never thought about that. Wow.
Yeah. Because if you think about
You ain't gotta tell me what to do with it. I already know. Been knew I had a juice with it. Y'all ain't ready though. Outside, got the vision going. I'ma make it go.
So, similar to Jacob, I'm studying software engineering and business at Western as well. And then, so I guess what's more interesting for me is like sort of coming up. I remember when I was picking programs in high school, I literally Googled highest paying degrees and highest paying jobs. And engineering was the highest paying degree, and investment bank was the highest paying job. So I picked engineering and then business so I can become an investment banker. And I think around like second or third year, like my whole life I'd always been like book academically oriented, get good grades, get a good job. And I think around second or third year, I'm like, man, like, why am I doing this? Like, is this actually what I want to do with my life? Like, is this actually like what gives me, I guess you could say, like purpose and like happiness? And also, again, as an immigrant too, I'm like, man, my parents came to Canada, they left everything they did, left Nigeria, came to Canada. Like, is this really making the best of the opportunity that I have? And so I sort of like, I actually wanted to drop out of school for a long time. I actually took a year off school. And I told my parents I took a year off, but I actually wanted to drop out of school. And then, so, again, we had like a long, heated debate about that. I decided to go back, but now I'm more interested in like entrepreneurship and like sort of almost more like helping people figure out like education is a big thing for me. So like my startup is about like helping with scholarships. So like the startup part is helping students afford their education, and then I'm doing the podcast more so like a lot of people don't know what they want to do with their life, and like obviously I don't know how to tell you what to do with your life, but maybe by bringing other people's stories, people see the other options that are out there besides like consulting, investment banker. Mm-hmm. And then my thing is like by just basically exposing people to all the different options and like seeing people who are like generally happy and like are living a comfortable life, different career paths, so help people figure out what they want to do with their life.
Okay, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so that's sort of what I'm trying to do.
Good for you.
Thank you.
What's your viewer base like?
That's a very interesting question. It's mostly like so it's I feel like it's typically people like us. They mean like numbers or like demographics.
Both.
Yeah, so numbers are not that good yet. We're on the come up, I like to say.
On LinkedIn is actually really good. But
yeah, LinkedIn is very good actually. Yeah. I say maybe between like 100. I think about 100.
That's not bad.
Yeah, that's not bad. And then in terms of like demographics, people like us typically. So early first, second, third university students, like early high school students. But I'm also trying to get like people who are like in their 20s too, or like maybe they've been working because I think a big thing now is people just like get an entry level job, 1 or 2 years, and they can now what I want to do. So I want to kind of catch those people too, right? Like, okay, they've done the 1 or 2 years, they've done the 1 or 2 years of banking, they want to pivot, and then what I want to do next. So I want to kind of get those people too.
That happened to me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that.
Okay, awesome. Okay.
I was like, let's start into the intro.
Hello and welcome to another episode of AtilaTV. I'm your host, Tommy Wa.
I'm Jacob.
And I'm Laura.
No, I introduce you.
Oh, sorry.
You can't introduce
Restart?
yourself. No, I'm just kidding. No. There's no restarts, this one thing. And on today's episode, we have Laura Desimone.
Yes.
Laura is a teacher at the Dufferin-Peel Catholic District School Board. And when she's not teaching and inspiring the youth of tomorrow, leaders of tomorrow, she is a Reiki instructor.
Master and instructor, yeah.
Reiki master and instructor. And before all that, she has not only a bachelor's from Queen's, but a master's and a PhD from U of T.
Well, I'm just finishing my PhD.
Okay, so should we call you Dr. Desimone?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Soon to be
It's
Dr.
coming.
Desimone.
It's coming.
So again, thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
The question I always like to start off with is, Laura at 16, or even younger if you want, what were you like in your youth when you were young?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. When I was 16, I was an athlete. That's all I really cared about. I just wanted to play sports. I played basketball and I played soccer at a high level. And
I played varsity team, I think, too, right?
I played in university. I played in the varsity team. Wow, you really did your homework.
Yeah.
Wow. I also really cared about school. Like I was, an athletic nerd.
Mm-hmm.
Like hardcore. Just really cared a lot about my marks. And I did really well in school. And I had aspirations of becoming an architect. And that's kind of really all I cared about at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Friends, sports, school. That's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were you influenced by your parents, like, in any way?
Oh.
In that regard, like, at the educational part?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I was in grade 7, you know how your teachers make you write like autobiographies and like, what do you want to be? I did that for you, right? What do you want to be when you grow up, right?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention.
Oh,
Laura is Jacob's grade 7 teacher?
Grade
Grade
8.
Grade 8 teacher, so.
Did I teach you in grade
And
6
6.
too?
Yeah, 6,
Yeah, I did.
There we go.
Yeah, twice.
Yeah.
Poor guy. When I was in grade 7, my teacher made us write, like, what do you want to be in the future?
Mhm.
And I wanted to be an artist and a teacher. That's what I wanted to be in grade 7.
Mm.
And then when I got to high school and I started to be a really great student, I really excelled in science and math, but I also excelled in visual arts, like as an artist, right? And my parents were like, you should be an architect. And I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, you'd be really, it's like the art and the science and like you'd be so good at it. And I was like, huh. That sounds like a pretty good idea,
Mhm.
right? And then I just adopted it as my own idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I stuck with that idea for a long time.
A very common thing we talk about on this show is like, what do I want to do versus what my parents want me to do, and like
Mhm.
finding that balance, which is something me and Jacob have talked about. You guys have talked about as well.
Yeah.
So like, you started off wanting to be an architect. Obviously not an architect now.
Yeah.
What was sort of that balance between like, this is what I want to do versus what my
happened?
parents did? Yeah.
So I went to Waterloo. I was really set on going to the University of Waterloo for some reason. I didn't get into their architecture program, but I got into the architecture program at U of T and at Carleton. Was it Carleton or was it Ottawa? I think it was Carleton. It was a long time ago. I can't even remember which one of them has an architecture, but I had a scholarship to both of those, and I turned them both down because I was just like,
Waterloo.
I want to go to Waterloo. I need to go there for some reason. They offered me entrance into the urban planning and design program, and I was like, that's close enough, right? Like, I'll just transition, I'll do that, I'll apply to the architecture school, and then I'll go do my master's, because I was always really, like schooling for me was always really important.
Mhm.
So I always knew I'd go on to do my master's or something like that. So I'm like, I got this. This is the path I'm going to take. So I worked my butt off in my first year at Waterloo, so I could get into the co-op program because they didn't take everybody. They took 30 students.
Small program.
Pardon?
Small program.
Yeah, small program.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they only took 30 students into the co-op program,
Mhm.
and so like it was really competitive. So I got in. That's how I afforded to go to school.
Yeah.
And I did that program, so it was a 5-year degree. And around year 5, I was like looking at my options for applying for my Master's of Architecture, and I had my portfolio ready. And while I was in my 5th year, my friends were in Teachers College. And they'd be telling me things like, oh, we did this and we did this, and inside I started to get this like sick feeling in my heart and my gut.
Childhood dreams.
And I was like, I wish I could do that, right? And
So
I was
the whole 5 years
jealous.
before, did you ever feel jealous about Teachers College?
No, I mean, I questioned it. Like, I questioned it, but like, I was always teaching. So like, even all through high school, I coached elementary basketball. When I went to university, I was a TA, in design. Like, I was always teaching. I even had, like, was tutoring kids. Even when I was working in St. Catharines for the municipality of St. Catharines as an urban planner, I had a part-time gig at Brock University teaching an urban planning course. Like, I was always teaching.
Yeah.
But like, I was really set on architecture for a long time until it was time to commit. And it was time for me to take the next step and like do my master's and put in my portfolio and actually commit to it.
Mm-hmm.
When something inside, like my gut was telling me, no, that's not what you're doing. It's not what you're supposed to do. And the more I'd hear my friends talk about their experiences, the more that feeling was, get louder. It
Yeah.
just got loud. And it was hard because now, like, I've told everybody in my life, including my family.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Like
Yeah.
my parents, my extended
Like your
family.
identity is almost tied to this career now.
Yes, it was. It was stuck. Like I was stuck there.
Yeah.
And then all my friends all knew, like my friend's going to be an architect. Like everyone's like, she's going to be an architect, and like that's it. Like you're stuck. You're stuck to be an architect now, right?
And
And
it's kind of weird to say you're stuck to something when you're like 21, 22.
Exactly.
well, yeah. Well, at that time I was, because I don't forget, like I'm older than you, so I went
Really?
I went to grade 13.
Yeah.
So like I was probably around 23.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit older.
Mm-hmm.
And so that feeling just started to get really loud, and I couldn't ignore it. And every time I talked to my friend, and they'd be talking about teachers' college, something inside my heart was just saying, that's what I want to do, right? And I sort of started to tell my parents that I was changing my mind, and they did not like that.
Really?
Yeah, they were really upset. It was hard. It was hardcore. The conversation went like this: why do you have to be a teacher? Anyone could be a teacher. Why do you have to be a teacher? And I was like, it was a hard sell,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
right? And it was big, huge disappointment, big, huge argument, a lot of
Cool.
tears,
What was your biggest objection to you becoming a teacher?
because they saw me as being incredibly intelligent and talented, and where they come from. My parents are both immigrants. One comes from Italy, the other one comes from Croatia, and where they're both from, to be a teacher you don't need a degree. You can just,
really?
you just I mean at that time.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
when they went to school.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know now. But it was kind of like you finished high school and then you went to teacher's college, and then that was it.
Yeah.
Right? And so they just didn't see why someone with my intellect and my talent and abilities would choose something that anyone could do. Like I guess they saw it as like a job that was down here, and they saw me as having this potential, right?
Yeah.
And so they were really not happy.
It's tough conversations, a lot of tears.
Yeah, a lot of tears, a
Yeah.
lot of crying. But I've always kind of followed my gut
Yeah.
in my whole life.
Mm.
Over that, did you like learn how to like manage your expectations with like your parents? Like ever since then? Because I noticed ever since I got into uni, I have like managed my expectations with my parents. Like sometimes I have super high expectations, but I let them know.
What do you mean by manage expectations?
So like if,
I was wondering that too.
okay, say they expect you to, for example, your parents.
Yeah.
I'll use your parents' example. They
Yeah,
expect
don't
you
use me as an example. Don't use your own self. Okay.
They expected you to be an architect,
Mm-hmm.
but like say back in high school, you could have told them, I don't think I can become an architect.
I sort
I
of
want to be a
planting the
teacher.
seed.
Yeah, kind of planting the seed before it really sprouts. Like
Yeah, since then, my parents so I ended up obviously becoming a teacher, and my parents ended up obviously seeing
They're good in it.
my passion for it.
Yeah.
And like the feedback I get from students, like
Mhm.
I get a lot of love from my students, right? Like I really do. And so they saw all that, and they realized, oh, she's doing what she's meant to do.
Yeah.
So from that moment onward, they kind of trusted me to make my own decisions about
Yeah.
my own path, because they learned that
Mhm.
I'm going to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
So prior to that point, because I think that's a very common thing where like you want to do this, parents want you to do this. So at the time you told me the decision, what was the relationship like, and then how did the relationship progress over the years?
So my relationship with my parents was always really good. And in that time when they were just being parents, they had in their mind a vision for their kid. And like all parents, I believe, just want the best for their children.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly, honestly believe that every parent is trying their best.
I disagree with you on that actually.
Yeah.
So
Why?
I used to actually believe that too. Like I was so dead set. I remember once I was talking to a group of people, and like parents are the only people in the whole world that do things for other people. Everyone else is selfish. Parents do things for their children.
Yeah.
And I used to think that was true, and then I realized that parents do things for themselves a lot of times too.
Of course, I'm not saying that they're not selfish people. I'm not saying
You said that
they're
they're doing it
perfect.
you said they're trying to do stuff for their kids, but sometimes it's not about what makes the kid happy. It's about
It's true.
what makes me look good in front of other
Yeah.
parents and my
Yeah,
friends.
but they don't know they're doing that.
Oh, they definitely do.
No, they don't.
This they do.
I don't
Yes,
think
they
so.
do. I feel like
No way.
I don't know. Well,
You don't think
definitely,
so?
definitely African parents, like
I would even say
they want to. Okay, for me, okay,
no,
Cuban
I know.
parents.
My parents are like, no, not my parents, but I know African parents are like that too. But I think parents in general, humans in general, they just care so much about how do they look like in front of other people, what my reputation, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but I know that. It's true.
You think, okay.
I don't think that they know that that's what they're doing. I
Is
think
it like subconscious?
I think it's totally subconscious.
Interesting.
Totally
Really?
subconscious programming, for sure, 100%.
And they just tell themselves that they're doing it for their kids.
Yeah.
But what
Yes.
about those parents who like just don't give a crap about the child?
Yeah, well, that's their subconscious programming. Like they like probably had that happen to them, and that's the best that they can do.
But they know better, so
But they can't do better because there's something wrong.
I guess so. Good point.
That's why she's a teacher. That's why she's a student. He just got schooled.
Yeah. Right?
literally.
It's like I really believe. So like what I was gonna say is I really believe that all parents try their best. Now
But what does that mean,
everyone's
though?
best
Yeah.
is
Okay.
different, right? And it all depends on how you were raised and like the programming that you've received from your life and your life experiences.
Mhm.
So like if you were like growing up in a household where your parents kind of just weren't really there for you, maybe it was an abusive household, maybe there was alcoholism, maybe someone lost a parent or whatever, and that's where you grew up, you're going to get programming from that. And then that programming follows you as you go further on in your life, and it becomes who you are.
Mhm.
It's not really who you are, but it's
Yeah.
who you become because you become your programs,
Mhm.
right? Now, everyone acts out of their programming. So if that person's best is probably not going to be the same as another person's best who grew up in a really loving household with two parents who were really supportive financially, they were totally fine. They were always told like you're great, you can do anything. The programming here and the programming here are going to be totally different.
Mhm.
This person's best is this. This person's best is this, but it's still the best.
Mhm.
Yeah,
No?
Yeah, I feel you.
it's the best they can do.
It's the best that they can do.
Okay. So where were we?
Okay, I was gonna argue
Okay.
about being the best parent you can be. There's some people who have been taught all their lives this is bad for your kids, like I don't know, smoking while they're pregnant, taking drugs, smoking even when they're born in the car, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like bare minimum, like being a bad parent. So like, what do you think about that? That's not their best because they definitely know that that's wrong.
What I think is that that's a parent in pain who is managing their pain in the only ways that they know how. And that's the behaviors that they do.
But they do know other ways to manage the pain.
Then
And they've
they-
been taught how to manage the pain.
Then they don't love themselves enough to do it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go back to your story.
So
You graduated? Did you graduate from Waterloo?
I did. I graduated from Waterloo, and then I was accepted into Queens
Mhm.
to do my Bachelor's of Education.
Mhm.
And it was a 1-year program, and it was like I was in my element. I was like, this is it for me.
That's
You know,
awesome.
I couldn't have been happier. And actually, to kind of rewind, I was really when I was trying to decide what to
Mhm.
do, it was not an easy decision. Like, despite the fact that I felt my gut telling me one thing,
Yeah.
I had, what are my parents going to think? What is my family going to think? I'm disappointing everybody, and you know, the whole what's the word I'm looking for? Just, you know, architect had like a nicer ring to it than teacher, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And just like that whole, you know, the reputation, everything about the
Prestige,
prestige. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. The prestige around it. I had to like really come to terms with all
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
And for a lot of months, I was really stuck. And it wasn't until a friend of mine got me a little gift, and it was a picture frame of a child. And there was a quote, and it said, I'm really big into quotes. Right?
Yeah.
And it was a quote that said, 20 years from now, it won't matter the car you drove or the house you lived in, but the world might be different because you were important in the life of a child. And it was like, once I got it, it brought me to tears, and I was like, I'm going to be a teacher. You know, like I just
Yeah.
needed
Yeah.
that push.
Yeah.
And so when I finally made that decision, it would never look back. I never thought about architecture ever again.
Mhm.
Honest to God. Never once. I never once thought, like, what would my life be like? Did I make a mistake?
Yeah.
Never. Not one time. And not...
What about like money? Because I think architects on average make more than teachers. Did you ever feel like, man, like I could be making more money?
No.
No?
Because like it's not about money for me. You know, at the end of the day, like the way I started thinking of myself back then, and it's kind of odd way for a 23-year-old to think, was when I leave this earth, what kind of legacy do I want to leave behind?
Mm-hmm.
That's how I'm thinking.
At 23.
At 23.
Wow.
But architects leave a legacy too.
Yeah,
like
I know.
all these buildings around us.
No, I know. But the question was what kind?
Yeah.
What kind of legacy do I want to leave? Do I want to leave, you know, buildings and whatever, or do I want to leave the kind of legacy where I've made impact on people,
Yeah.
right? And for me, I really want to impact. Bless you. Well, it was more important for me to leave an impact on people.
Yeah.
That's really the kind of legacy I want to leave. Like I want to. That's what I wanted to do.
For people having the same like dilemma, like I've had that dilemma. I'm sure you have. Dilemma. Oh my god. Dilemma. Potato. Like, what's your biggest advice to them? Like, what's a good advice you give them? Like
For someone who's in the same dilemma as I was in.
Yeah.
Basically to recognize that you're on this earth to live your life and not anyone else's. And that's kind of what I had to come to terms with. Like, as much as I love my parents,
Yeah.
I'm here to live my life.
But for some, like, some get kicked out of their house just because of that. I don't know. Some literally have to start from nothing.
That's okay.
With no support.
That's okay. I really feel like the universe supports you when you're following your heart. And so to recognize that, the second thing is to always be true to yourself.
Yeah.
And to not be afraid. Because no matter what path you take, there's no right or wrong way. There's just a choice. There's just choices. There aren't right choices or wrong choices. They're just choices, and every choice leads you down a path, right?
Yeah.
And you just go down it, and you just see what's going to happen next. And if you go down that path and you figure out like, oh, I don't, it's not what I thought it was going to be. You'd make another choice, right?
Yeah.
And you just change the direction, but you're never stuck where you are.
Mm-hmm.
And even I've always said, even if I had to change paths now, let's say all of a sudden I got bored of teaching or bored of whatever, and it just wasn't right for me anymore, I would just do something else, right? And it might be hard, it might be, I might be worried about the money, I would, whatever, but like, at the end of the day, you have to live your life, and you have to be happy.
Yeah.
And so, you're not stuck ever. You're never stuck.
Yeah. So you're not scared of like losing the financial security if you decide.
Well, I'm not. I am human.
Okay.
So I would be scared,
Yeah.
but I would also take a leap of faith.
Okay.
Right, and like faith has a lot to do with it. So like I'm a pretty faithful person, and I do believe that I'm supported. And like if I have a desire or a dream or something that I want to do, I truly believe that I will be provided for in some way, shape, or form. That's always been my experience. So.
I want to sort of round out your life story part. So then, you're Queen's Teacher's College, you love it. Most teachers, you definitely don't need a master's, you definitely don't need a PhD to become a teacher. Why did you decide to pursue those opportunities?
So I really, like I said before, like I really have always believed in education.
Yeah.
And I've always saw myself as kind of going onward in my education for as far as I can because I can.
Yeah.
It's like, if I can, I will.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. It's really that simple.
Yeah.
And when I first started teaching at the school where I taught Jacob, there was a principal by the name of Sue Steer. I don't know, did you ever? No, you didn't. You never had that pleasure. She was awesome. She ended up being a superintendent in our board. She was just a phenomenal person and a phenomenal teacher and a phenomenal principal. And she really saw something in me as a young teacher. It was only my third year when I started teaching there. She sat me down after she did a appraisal. Teachers get appraised.
Mm-hmm.
She sat me down after my appraisal and said, okay. She said, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go get your master's, and then you're going to get into leadership, and then you're going to do this and this because you're too good for you not to do that. And I was like, okay. And that was like December, or maybe it was January. And by February, I had been accepted to the master's program because I took
Wow.
her advice and I said, okay. And I just did it.
Yeah.
And I just applied to UFT. Was the only school I applied to. And I got in.
What do you think she is? What do you think it is that she saw in you?
I think she saw my love for kids,
Yeah.
my passion for the job,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of innovative in
Yeah.
the way that I teach. I don't like to teach things like,
Yeah.
in a boring way. And
Mhm.
I am kind of, forward
Change the game.
thinking. Like
Mhm.
I don't know, I see kids.
Yeah.
I see their potential and I really push. Like I really have high expectations and I push.
Another question for you. So you said, and I think this is where we might have a bit of difference of opinion.
That's fine.
So you mentioned that you're big on. You mentioned that you're big on education.
Yeah.
I think me and Jake were also very big. In fact, can you bring that book over here?
Sure.
Like on the way over here, Jake was actually reading book recommendation for you guys watching. No Excuses, Brian Tracy. Check it out. Anyway, so all this to say that we're both very big on education, right?
Yeah.
But I think me and I won't speak for Jake. I'll speak for myself. Is like I'm very big on education, but my thing is like I'm sort of very. I think the school system right now is really not set up with students' best interests in mind. Especially the sense of, first of all, like we're both doing university, and we both kind of ask ourselves, why are we even doing university? Is there a value behind your degree? Then getting a master's, getting a PhD, like is the university kind of overrated at this point?
It depends on what you want to do, right?
Mhm.
If you're wanting to go into the entrepreneurial route, then yeah, it's overrated for you, right?
Mhm.
It might not get you to where you want to go, but it might. It depends on what you want to do. Like my dream, my absolute dream, has always been to open up my own school. Now,
Do you need a degree to do that?
no, I don't, but it wouldn't hurt to have credentials, right?
Yeah.
And if you're like opening up a school,
Mhm.
it's helpful to have, a doctorate in education.
So you said it
that
wouldn't-
you're credible, right?
Yeah. See, to be honest, I'm not sure I'm really comfortable with that idea whereby you need an institution to give you credibility. I'm still thinking through this myself. I feel like there has to be a better way of proving that someone's competent and someone's capable of doing a job.
No,
They'll
I
have
agree.
to go somewhere, accumulate student debt, spend 4 years of their life,
That is true.
No, I
Yeah.
totally
in order
agree
to just
with
get like a
you.
rubber stamp.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, but there's also sometimes, unfortunately, you have to play a game to get to where you want to go. Like you have to be just as smart as the institutions are, or just as smart as all the other game players.
Right.
So like sometimes like, as an athlete, I've always learned, I'm a competitive person, you always try to get an edge
Mhm.
on your
your
opponent, right? And so if I'm wanting to do something, I'm looking at the long game. I'm always thinking about what can I do to get an edge.
Yeah.
And I think the long game, I always try to think of what can give me the best edge so that I can compete.
Yeah.
And I was saying, like, I want to write books, I want to do this and that. And having those little letters beside your name actually do matter if you think, oh,
Do they really?
they can.
Yeah, they can.
They can.
I mean,
It
but
doesn't
there are a lot
necessarily.
of. There's
No,
a
like-
lot,
It might
yeah,
not
right.
necessarily, but it might, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I like to keep doors open.
Yeah.
I like to keep possibilities. Like
Yeah.
I like creating as many avenues as I possibly can, so I don't have a regret later,
Mhm.
right?
That's right. Yeah.
So that's just kind of how I approached it.
So you mentioned you want to start a school one day.
Mhm.
What do you think is one thing that most people get wrong? Like most people in the education system right now, like teachers, administrators, even students. What do you think is like something that they get wrong by the education system?
I think that the goal of education should be to teach kids to love themselves, and that's it. That should be our primary goal.
It's actually
Wow.
really interesting.
It's really different.
That's a new answer.
I know.
Because even I had never thought about that. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you think about raising self-loving people, what the impact of that might be. The only reason why a person doesn't reach their full potential ever is because there's a part of themselves they don't love,
That's so
Yeah.
or
true.
that they don't believe in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
right?
true.
That is true.
That they have a limiting belief or limiting thought, some sort of fear.
Yeah.
A real truly self-loving person doesn't have that, right? And knows how to combat those fears, knows how to
More
mitigate
self-aware.
them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're really self-aware, and they know
Mhm.
that I'm not doing this right now because I'm afraid.
Yeah.
And then they know what to do with that fear. That's what a truly self-loving person does. And I truly believe that if all we ever taught kids was how to be self-loving,
Mhm.
Yeah.
that they'd reach their full potential. You could teach them anything else.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So like, first of all, I love that answer. Like, I've never heard that before. That's a great answer. But I'm also an engineer, right? So I like practicals and specifics.
Mm-hmm.
So if today you're the superintendent, you're the Minister of Education for all the students in Ontario,
Mm-hmm.
let's say high school, elementary school, how do you practically implement that?
Practically implement what part?
Basically, the idea of like teaching children, like, so basically
Self-love.
reformatting, or what's the word I'm looking for?
Reforming?
Disrupting the education system
Well, I
in order
think
to
you have
help students to change the curriculum in that way.
I think you have to teach teachers to love themselves first, right? Because teachers teach children,
Yeah.
and when teachers aren't self-loving, then they basically just carry over negative patterns in kids. So, like they take their own anger and resentment and all of that fear-based thoughts and feelings and emotions that they're carrying around, and all their programming they're carrying around, and they're just dumping it on kids, right? So that's the problem. And that's actually what my PhD research is about. It's about like wellness for teachers.
Oh, that's cool.
And so I think you start there.
So specifics, like what kind of things would you do? Like, because I just like think best
Or-
with tactical stuff.
Or in what way right now do you do it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, so what do I do now?
Yeah, to
We're gonna go to Reiki
practice
now.
that. No, to practice.
Okay.
To practice self-love?
Yeah.
So like for what I do for myself is like I meditate.
Okay.
I stretch, I work on my body, I give a lot of love to myself, which translates into my classroom. So what I do with my students is like I will get them to meditate.
Mhm.
I'll have conversations with them and
Yeah.
teach them about love and teach them about the importance of loving themselves, how to deal with their own emotions when they arise, and talk about programming and how we create limiting beliefs and how we create stories about ourselves and how we don't have integrity around our actions. So I'm teaching all of these things
Yeah.
that are crucial to a self-loving practice.
Mhm.
Like you have to take responsibility for yourself in order to love yourself, right? So I teach them how to take responsibility and then
Mhm.
how to love themselves through it and how to have integrity and how to,
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That's what it would look like,
Yeah.
right?
So like, no, this is really good because like so many questions I have now. I don't even know which one to ask first. First thing that comes top of mind. So like, maybe what's one change or one thing you do? I know you mentioned the thing about self-love, which is a great point. Can you think of like something you would do differently? Like, so like the way the system is currently set up now, would you change anything about that? Because I feel like in order for you to start teaching people self-love, maybe you need to stop doing something or start doing something else or change the way something's done. Does that make sense?
I feel like I would just stop putting so much emphasis on outcomes and put more emphasis on process,
That's a great answer.
right?
I agree with that.
I don't like giving kids marks for the simple fact that a mark turns into how they define themselves.
I agree with you,
Yeah.
but I think the word, like everything you're saying, like I agree with you. I feel like to be a good host, I have to ask a counter question, right?
Okay.
Which
for
would be
sure.
that if I'm a university, I have 500 high school students, I need to know who the smartest 50 students are. Great sort of, they don't do a good job, but they sort of do a good enough job of doing that. So if I'm a university, I need to find the 50 smartest students. So if I'm an employer,
Then give them a problem.
Yeah.
Give them a problem to solve, and then see who comes up with the best solution.
so like the SATs,
No, like a problem, like a real problem,
real-life
like
problem.
a real life problem. Give them a problem. Make education problem based. Let
Mhm.
kids learn how to become
so if I'm
problem
a dean of
solvers.
admission at Harvard,
Yeah.
and now there's no more grades, there's no SATs, so I don't even know who the smart people are.
Mm-hmm.
What's the kind of problem I can do at scale that's gonna help me figure out who I want to get into my school?
Well, I don't know. I'm not an engineer, and I don't know how to figure that out. But I mean, I obviously at a certain point, like you're gonna need some sort of evaluation
Yeah.
at a certain point. But like, maybe let's leave the evaluation to like a later date, not when kids are like grade 1,
Yeah.
right? Like I don't feel like there's a need. You know,
Mhm.
there's lots of education systems, namely one in Finland.
The
where-
Nordics, man, they always do such a good
yeah,
job.
their education is top notch, best in the world, and they don't really start giving kids grades until they go to high school. And I don't really, if we're looking at what they're doing something right. Kids
Yeah,
don't even
yeah.
start school until they're 7, and then they're just going through school and they're just progressing. And they've
Mhm.
got teachers just pushing them forward and recognizing, okay, they still haven't done that, so we've got to get them to learn that. And there are no marks, there's no tests, there's none of that. It's just all about developing the person.
Mhm.
But it's
And I believe in any education system that cares about the person first.
yeah. But isn't it almost like that right now? Because elementary school students can't fail a class. Like you can't repeat a year. So isn't it?
I think
The
But
grades
they still
really
get-
don't matter.
They don't matter.
Yeah.
they still stress out about
But they
it.
matter to the kid.
Yeah.
I guess so. Yeah.
And they matter to the parent. Like
Yeah.
I can't tell you
Yeah.
how many times a kid will get like, you know, just mess up a test or whatever, because like I have to go with the education system. I can't just start doing my own thing, right? So I give them a test. The kid fails in their eyes. You know, they didn't get the mark they wanted.
B plus instead of an A.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they're like distraught.
Yeah.
They're like their whole self-worth just
It's
went
tied.
out the window.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, you just gave all your power to a piece of paper that had a letter on it. I'm like, that's not healthy,
Yeah.
right? And like, talk about lack of self-love. Like, you're giving all of your power away to an external source, right? And
Yeah.
that's just not good for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So, I do think it's important. I don't have an answer. I don't know
Yeah.
what the fix is. I think that it could be a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But I do think that the human being and the soul and the humanity of the human being is what's the most important.
And that actually, what you said about the child putting all their power in one piece of paper, that carries on to adulthood.
I know.
How
Yeah.
much money they got in their bank account.
Yeah.
And that's,
Everything.
Yeah.
You know, and
That's
like
crazy.
nowadays it's even worse because like when I was growing up, I didn't have to worry about how many likes I got on
Yeah.
an Instagram post.
oh yeah, there's that too now.
But they're,
Yeah.
you know, like how many, like I don't even use Snapchat, so I don't know. But like, do
Yeah.
they like views? What is it, views?
I don't even use
I don't use
Is it?
Snapchat either.
I don't know. I have no idea. But
Snapchat's dead.
my students love Snapchat,
Yeah.
but it's like, wow, you're really putting all your power into this.
Mhm.
Like I had a student last year who she would come to school and she'd have her phone and she'd be talking to me and pressing the phone, and I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, oh, I'm just like viewing
Streak.
I'm keeping all my streaks.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
like, I'm like, you're not even looking at them. She's like, yeah, I know, but if I don't do that, then they're gonna cut me off. And this, I'm like, thinking like, this is real.
Yeah.
This is a real thing.
Okay, so I have some questions. Yeah, because you mentioned your students, like, you teach grade 7, grade 8, right?
Yeah, mostly grade 8, but this year grade 7 and 8.
Which, I'm going to sort of make my own assumption that you can correct me. I feel like one reason, because I teach as well, younger kids, and the reason why I like that kind of age group is because they're old enough that you can have meaningful conversations, but not too old that maybe they're
Hard-headed.
hardened, maybe,
Yeah.
or maybe they're too, like they have too much attitude with older students. But anyway, why do you teach grade 7, grade 8 students?
I find grade 8 and grade 7 to be an age where kids are the most impressionable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they can go either way, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like if they had the wrong role model, it would be bad, but if they had a really good role model, it would be really great.
Yeah.
It's kind of that age where it's like they're not quite set yet.
Mhm.
There's still hope, you know, like they still want role models.
Mhm.
They don't know they want them, but they want them, they need them,
Yeah.
right? And because they're just going through a lot of changes, like
Yeah.
physical, hormonal, social changes.
Mhm.
Things are changing. What's important to them is changing, and it's kind of like a really confusing time. And actually, the reason why I teach that age is because I remember it being a really confusing time for me.
Yeah.
I didn't know who the hell I was when I was in grade 8.
Yeah.
I was like the worst follower. I just didn't know how I could fit in, and then I had a teacher who really stepped in
Yeah.
and showed me like a way.
Yeah.
And I remember wanting to be a teacher because of her.
Wow.
And in fact, on my first year teaching on World Teachers Day, which is October 5th, I wrote her an email.
What's her
saying,
name?
Her name was Laura Di Giambattista.
Shout out Laura Di Giambattista.
Yeah, she's the principal right now. Or she's retired, I'm not 100% sure, we kind of lost contact, but I remember emailing her saying, I want you to know that I'm a teacher because of you, because of what you've done for me, and I hope that I can impact my students the same way you did for me.
Yeah.
So,
Some more questions about that.
sure.
What are some things you think? What are some changes you've seen in students at that age? From like maybe when Jacob was in grade 8 to like now, or like even when you first started off teaching, and then now, like how have the kids changed over the years?
You know,
What are some-
a lot of teachers have, like, we talk about this, right? It's like, oh my God, the kids these days. And
Social media.
yeah, aside from the fact that there's more of a social media presence and technology presence than there was when I first started teaching, kids are kids.
Yeah.
Like, they don't really change that much.
That's
you know,
true.
like my some of my colleagues would like really disagree, but I'm like, they're not that different. You know, they're still human beings.
Yeah.
They still need love and want love.
Yeah.
And they still have a lot of fear, and they just need a little bit of guidance. Like, that's pretty much it. How they express themselves might be different. They might be listening to different music. They might be on their phones a lot, but at the root of it all, they're the same.
Yeah.
Hasn't changed, not from the day one, not from the first day I started teaching.
Yeah.
And that's just how I see them. Like, it hasn't changed. It's like, that kid still needs love. That kid needs love. That kid needs guidance, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right? That still stay the same.
Yeah. Like for me, like throughout life, like there's many changes. Like grade 8, there's grade 12,
Yeah.
and there's also the whole of uni is
University,
like
yeah.
the whole of university for me is like a change.
Yeah.
So how come you didn't teach any grades like in like grade 12, for example, or grade 11?
Because I feel like they're
Because
also
those,
impressionable too.
yeah,
They are.
and they have a tough decision to make after like
Yeah.
whatever they choose.
Yeah, that's true.
They might stick with it for the rest of their life.
That's a good question. I kind of just always liked the grade 8s because I felt that they needed me more.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I feel like it's more of a vulnerable age.
Yeah.
And when kids are in grade 12, they already kind of already.
Yeah, I was thinking of myself too. Like, I was very set on like investment banking in grade 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like in grade 8, I could use a teacher like you for sure.
Yeah, I needed one like
In grade
me.
12, I could use a teacher like.
Yeah.
I was just set on money.
But I feel like that was good. I feel like for grade 12 that was good because like it gave me a certain drive, and I took a step back and like reassessed my goals.
Well, I was like you guys too. Like when
Yeah.
I was in grade 12, it was all about prestige and money and like,
Yeah.
you know, what I could accomplish, and I don't know, I just kind of grew out of that. You realize that there's more to life, right?
Yeah.
Like just like how you realized it,
Mhm.
right? Like, you know, there's, what am I doing here? Like, why am I, like, there's gotta be more. Is this it? And I came to that realization at a really young age.
Mhm.
And that's just always been something that I've recognized about life, that there's more.
So on the topic of love and more to life, Reiki.
Yeah.
What is it? How did you find out about it?
Oh my gosh. So I haven't had a perfect life. So I've had struggles, I've had trauma, I've had all kinds of things happen, and I went through really hard moments. I suffered from probably age 21 to about age 32. I suffered from severe anxiety, to the point where there were times where it was debilitating. I'd go through stages, but
Yeah.
like it would be debilitating. I would have like panic attacks in the middle of the night. I'd think about death all the time. I'd think that I had disease. I had cancer. I had a brain aneurysm, and I had every disease like known to man. And I didn't know that I was an anxious person.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth, my doctor was like, maybe you're suffering from anxiety. I'm like, I'm not an anxious person. She's like, that's anxiety.
Mhm.
And my anxiety was so bad to the point where it affected my digestive health. So like, I constantly, you know, like that butterfly feeling in your stomach when you're anxious or worried. It turned into like an ulcer.
Oh my gosh.
I turned like gastritis. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Like I couldn't, like so many foods. It affected my every aspect of my life. And I just got so tired of it that I started to like seek like some sort of guidance or help. Like I just needed to get out of this hole. And I started doing that. I started to see this energy. It was like an energy psychotherapist. Like it was not really psychotherapy, but it was like a lot of. We good?
I'm just are we recording?
Yeah, it's recording.
Yeah, okay. Energy psychotherapist?
Yeah, and it was like a lot of weird questions that he asked me, and it was really helpful, and that kind of got me on my way.
Yeah.
How did you even discover the energy psychotherapist?
I was listening to a podcast, actually.
AtilaTV10?
And he, no.
You wish, okay.
Yeah, I wish. And I was just listening to this guy speaking, and I was just like, oh, he's really interesting. He was talking about energy, and like I didn't know anything about energy at that time. It was just kind of interesting. It kind of drove me to him, and I found his number, and I got some appointments with him, and it was like really helpful. And I saw some success there, and then like I was like, great, like my stomach issues started to subside, my anxiety really lessened, and then I reached a plateau where it was like I wasn't just quite satisfied. I didn't feel fulfilled in my life somehow. And I just, I was looking for a guest speaker to come to my school. You were already like long since graduated.
Oh, yeah.
And I would run girls' night at my school every year, and I was looking for a guest speaker, and I kind of put it out there on Facebook saying, like, is there anyone out there that's, could recommend a good speaker for me for my girls? And 3 people said the same person, Rose Arago, who I've known since she was 4. She's younger than me. But I've known her forever, and she was a personal trainer from what I knew, and I'm like, I don't really want a personal trainer to come and speak to my girls. Like, I'm kind of looking for something a little bit more inspirational. And then, like, the next person mentioned her, and the next person, like, all these people are mentioning her, and I'm like, okay, fine. Right? Like 3 times, when the universe puts something in front of you 3 times, and you go for it, right? Yeah. So I was like, okay. So I called her up. I'm like, Rosa, would you be interested in coming and speak to my school, to like my girls? She's like, absolutely, but you have to come and see me first, so you can see what I do. And I'm like, I don't really want a personal trainer. I'm like, I don't need that. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, fine. So I go, and all of a sudden, she starts talking to me about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind and energy and chakras and all this shit. And I'm like, what? Yeah. I'm like, what is this? Like, I thought you were gonna train me, right? And so she didn't train me. She started talking to me about the conscious and subconscious and how we manifest in the universe and energy and blah, blah, blah. And she started stretching my body. So she was just doing fascial stretch on my body. And I left feeling like a whole different person. And I was like, whoa, I don't know what she did there, but like I left feeling like giddy, happy, like I'm like, what's going on? Sometimes a little bit emotional, and I kept going back, and like every time I'd see her, something would change, and like I'd be like have huge emotional releases. I'm like, this is not normal. She's doing something weird and different. Yeah. But it really started changing my perspective, and started changing the way I relate to my body, and I started meditating, because she's like, meditate, so she put me through meditation. So I started meditating, and it completely changed my life and the way I see things and the way I relate to the world. And then one day she's like, Laura, she's like, you gotta come. She's like, I got this Reiki master. She's like, I'm amazing. Like, she does a Reiki session, and like I remember hearing about Reiki. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go. She's like, you gotta try. She's the real deal. She's awesome. And I'm like, okay. So I go, and like I'm bawling in this session, crying. Not know why. I don't even like to cry in front of people, right? Just like, this is horrible. It's like my worst nightmares happening right here. Yeah. But it was like so cathartic and liberating, and like I was crying, and she talked to me afterwards, and like just kind of did a rundown on my body and my energy, and she's like, you can do this work, right? And I was like, I can? So then I just looked into it, and I said, all right, I need to do this for people. This is like, there's something going on here. Like, I need to do this for people. I need to offer this for people. So I started my training. I found a Reiki master, started training level 1, level 2, level 3, became a Reiki master teacher over the course of a few years. And I really wasn't looking to practice right away. And then Rose is like, why don't you just join me and like join Rise? Like, that's her, Rise Mind Body was her studio. She's like, just join me, and would you be willing to offer treatments and teaching at Rise? And I said, yeah, sure. Yeah. And then the next thing I know, I'm like a spiritual teacher. And like, people are coming to me for help, and I'm giving guidance, and I'm coaching them in their lives, and I'm teaching these courses, and like everything just kind of spiraled. Yeah. And it took me on a whole different direction. Yeah. I just never expected. Ever, I would ever be on this ride. Yeah.
And how would you say, you kind of alluded to it, but like if you had to like summarize it, how would you say doing Reiki has changed you?
How has it changed me? That's a big question.
How have you benefited from it?
Well, just from like, I'm constantly in tune with my body. I have a really dedicated mind-body practice. Your body is everything. It's your whole subconscious mind. We can go into this for probably 5 hours if you want to, but your body is your subconscious mind. And like, I look at people differently now. When I meet people, I look at their bodies, and their bodies tell me a lot.
So what does
So do you judge? Like,
should we ask
do you judge?
should we ask you off camera? Like, because I'm really curious. Like, what does our body tell you about us?
Very strong, very open, and very confident people. Like I could just tell them by your bodies. The body tells a lot about a person, and their energy never lies. And like your body's energy, like your physical structure, what you think is your physical body is actually just dense energy, right? So it says a lot. It gives off a lot of information, and my practice has really opened me up to receiving a lot of information from a lot of people. So like I can be talking with people and like I just get little hints of intuition about them and who they are and why they're like that and like what goes on in their lives. So it's like maybe too much information, but it helps me see people's pain. So I don't see, like they might be misbehaving, and it's really helped me in my teaching, because when a kid's misbehaving, before maybe what I would have done is react. And like, you know,
angrily maybe.
Maybe angrily, and maybe like just, hurt them, just push them down even that much further. Now I'm able to look at them and kind of see that it's not who they are. They're just acting out of some sort of pain or pattern, and like I can kind of sense that. So it's just made me really sensitive to everybody. So now I just feel like I just love everybody and I can't stop. And it's like, go ahead.
Have you always been an open-minded person? Because like for some people, like they would be in your situation and they'll be like, no way, I'm not doing meditating, I'm not doing Reiki. Like for me, I had like bad anxiety in first year. And I was like, there's no way meditating can help, like sitting there with my eyes shut. I believe in meditating. And like I resorted to like praying, like because I'm really religious and everything. And that didn't work either. So I'm like, I'll just try meditating because everyone keeps on talking about it. And it actually really helps.
Yeah, it does. And there's a science behind that too. Yeah,
so what do you like suggest for people who are like closed-minded on that? Like why should they do Reiki or meditating or come to your program and
I mean, there's a whole science behind it. There's been study upon study upon study done on the benefits of meditation on the mind and on moods and on everything, on mental health. So like that kind of just speaks for itself. The reason why people don't like to meditate oftentimes is because they're not comfortable being in stillness. They don't know what meditation looks like or what it's supposed to feel like, and they sit there with themselves and they get anxious or they get frustrated because they think they're doing it wrong, or that it's that they're expecting some sort of like hallelujah to come while it's happening, and it's just not like that. It's not that complicated either. It's just really simple. But the reason why they should do it is because that's where you find yourself in stillness. And if you don't take the time to sit with yourself, you're kind of like it's kind of like the CEO of a company pushing forward without ever talking to its employees. Ever. Could you imagine what would happen to that company if there was like right? But like I mean, imagine all of the employees were pissed
that's true,
and they're angry, but the CEO is just charging forward. That's kind of what we do, right? Like our subconscious mind is like trying to give us signals of it being unhappy and it being in need of attention, and we need to change something here. There's something going on. I'm upset, I'm resentful, this, whatever. When you meditate, it's like the CEO taking a moment to like go to the employees and be like, okay, what's up?
So I have a question about that. So you mentioned that one of the things that piqued my interest, you mentioned that with Reiki, it helps you interact with other people and makes you like happy to be around other people. What's the word you said? You said it makes you happy about people or something along those lines.
I love people.
Yeah, it makes you love people more, right? I think for the most part, I definitely love people. I think sometimes is that, especially like in my personal relationships, sometimes people do something that make me upset, and I'm trying to get better at like sort of getting over it, or like even though they made me angry, not being angry at them as a person, but just angry at what they did. How did Reiki help you develop that sort of relationship with people?
Because you kind of separate yourself from your emotions, right? Like Reiki is like, when people think of Reiki, they sometimes think that it's just energy, it's like you're just moving energy through a person's body, but Reiki practice, like someone who really practices Reiki takes it on as like kind of like a way of life, where it includes meditating, it includes like constantly like working on yourself and like shedding of yourself like negative patterns,
Mhm.
really.
Yeah, yeah.
And as you do that, you become really sensitive to other people. And as you meditate, you realize that you're not your emotions. That
Okay.
your emotions aren't who you
100%.
are.
Yeah.
You experience your emotions, but it's not who you are.
What does that mean?
Have you meditated yourself?
I meditated before.
Have you not noticed that in yourself?
No, like one of the things we were talking about all the time was like, you know, meditating, and I feel like I think I have a way of getting peace of mind that doesn't necessarily require meditation. I'm still open to trying it once in a while.
Well, it depends on your meditate. Like maybe you are meditating, you don't even know
In
that you're
different
doing
ways,
it.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's
right?
probably
And
what it
meditating
is.
doesn't look like this.
Yeah.
It's not the only way it looks, right? Meditation is any mindful present moment, right? So if any moment that you're fully present and you're just fully engaged, you're meditating, right? So when you're really present, when you practice that muscle in your body to be really present, you recognize that who you are is not an emotion. You experience emotions because you're human and they come through you and they leave, but that's not who you are. Who you are is the soul that's watching you have an emotion.
Yeah.
You're the watcher.
Yeah, that's so true.
Right?
Very true, yeah.
You're like, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're the watcher, you can't be the emotion. It's like if I'm watching television, I can't be the television and watch it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you're watching yourself behave and you're watching your thoughts and watching your emotions, you can't be any of those things. You're the entity that's watching. So you can really separate yourself. So when you get angry, you'll get to a point, if you really practice mind-body practice, you get to a point where you recognize that no one can make you angry. You just have anger inside you
Yeah.
that they touched
Yeah.
and it came out.
Yeah.
So you realize, oh my gosh,
It's calm.
anger's coming out.
Mhm.
And you're like, huh.
What about on a related note to that? Sorry, I just have a quick question. This is like really relevant to me. Like disappointment. When you have expectations, I know try not to have expectations of other people, but you sort of like expect someone to do something for you and they let you down. How do you like use Reiki? Or like how do you sort of think about not letting that affect your relationship?
But you can't use Reiki. Reiki's just energy, right?
Yeah.
So
Like what's your thought process of
your
like?
thought process around disappointment is, my question would be, why do you have expectations of people?
Mhm.
And anytime you have expectations, you're going to probably be disappointed, right? And no one owes you anything, and recognizing that it's never about you. What people do in their lives has nothing to do with you. And even if you're hurt and you're disappointed, that's yours. Your disappointment is your own problem.
Yeah.
And it's your own story that you're telling yourself. And it doesn't have to be disappointment, it's just what you decided you wanted to be.
Yeah. I remember.
So true.
I remember in
Oh my
8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
There was, I don't know if it was your quote or something, but there was like you're like the main character of your life. So if everyone thinks that way,
Yeah,
you shouldn't
but
have expectation of
yeah.
other people because
Mhm.
they're worried about themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true. And like I said, you can choose anything, right? And like I'm really careful about how I label things because even words have energy, right?
Yeah.
So anytime I'm experiencing anything, I'm really careful to label it as disappointing because if I label it as disappointing, I now step into that disappointing energy,
Yeah.
right? But think about, how does this feel? Like if something happened, would it feel different if you said, well, that's interesting,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
compared to, oh, that's disappointing. Do you know how that feels? It's
Yeah.
just like, oh, right?
Yeah.
But if you just be like, oh, that's interesting that that
Mhm.
happened, because it is what it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be disappointing. It doesn't have to be great. It can be
Yeah.
whatever you want it to be,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Whatever
Yeah.
you decide, it is.
Yeah.
But then you step into that energy. So
Yeah.
stop saying that.
Yeah.
Do you have a question?
Yeah.
You have a
Going back
question?
to like being a spectator of your emotions,
Mhm.
do you feel also like the opposite when you're happy and proud of yourself?
Yeah.
Does it calm down your ego and like
Yeah,
you're not
absolutely, right?
Yeah.
Like you absolutely are enjoying every emotion,
Yeah.
or experiencing or allowing every emotion as they come,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
when it's like great emotions, you're like, yay, it's like
Yeah.
you're enjoying it. But also taking the negative emotions in stride and knowing
Yeah.
that they're gonna come and go too, right? Nothing's permanent.
I've definitely noticed that about meditating. I'm more like
Yeah. You're
it's like I'm
solid.
pacing myself with
Yeah.
my emotions
Yeah.
rather than having highs and lows.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Jacob mentioned the thing about how he said he's very religious and you tried praying and it didn't work for you. And you said you're Italian and Croatian, which are historically, I think, typically Catholic, Christian.
Mhm.
Did you grow up in a religious family and are you
Well,
religious?
very big time. Well, because prayer can be a meditation.
Mhm.
But it all depends on on where you're praying from. And if you're praying from a space of fear, that's not really helpful.
That's what most people pray
That's
from.
what most
That's probably what I do pray from.
Yeah, like when you're praying from a place of fear, and there's a lack of belief and faith in that you are cared for, prayer is not helpful. One thing, unexpected thing that came from my Reiki practice was that it actually brought me closer to my Catholic faith.
Yeah.
And they don't seem to go together, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, Reiki's like kind of new age, and like Catholicism isn't, right? It's like really rigid. But it absolutely allowed me to see, God and understand God and Jesus and all of that in a really metaphysical way, and understanding that like all Jesus was ever teaching was about love, and all his healing was energy based, and he was just trying to teach people to be like him, that you have the capacity to do what I'm doing. And it's kind of like what I feel like, I don't think I'm Jesus, but I feel like I'm trying to do with me, like you have the ability to love, you have the ability to heal, you have the ability to do all these things. And I just kind of brought me closer to my faith. But you can't pray and feel better unless there's some sort of faith and belief, and knowing that you're part of a higher power, and that you're going to be okay, right? And my Reiki practice got me to that knowing. So when I pray, it's a whole different experience now.
For the thing is, when I started meditating, it was the exact opposite. Like I became more spiritual rather than religious. And the difference is, like I believed in a higher power, and I still think he or she or whatever it was had control over Earth. But I wasn't in line with like some of the practices of like religion. Like when you see like even in the Christian Bible, the Muslim, like they just don't align. And if we're all talking about the same higher power, then so I just became more spiritual and didn't practice what they preached necessarily.
That's like I'm not saying that it made me a more devout Catholic. It just helped me understand my faith and helped me appreciate where it all came from. Some of the rules, I'm like,
exactly.
Like what? Like that's like a human made that rule. God didn't make that rule. It kind of like, it's like what? So a lot of the things that are like human made, that I know that God, like for me, God is love, it's creation, it's possibility.
So would you say you're spiritual?
I would say I'm probably more spiritual, but now I can be in my Catholic faith and be okay with it, right? I'm accepting. Whereas I went through a whole period of my life where I really rejected it, because I was like, this is not faith. Like, God does not hate people, and God does not turn people away. And I'm like, I don't like this rule and that rule, and I was just like totally against it. Now I can kind of appreciate the origins of it and buy into that. But yeah, probably more spiritual. Because my God is everyone's God, and like I don't care what you call God, like we're all talking about the same thing.
And I see that's why you have the tattoo love.
That's
awesome. You want to tell us the story behind that?
Actually, I just got it.
Really? How recent?
On the weekend.
Okay.
That's because basically, like through the journey I've been through, like my spiritual journey and like growth, and like just kind of going through this path of healing and self-realization and self-love, you just, once you kind of remove all the layers of the patterns and the pain and the trauma that you've accumulated in life, you get to the core of who you are, which is really just love. And you just have a greater capacity to love everybody, and you just realize that that's just the answer to everything. It just is. It just is. And so it's been the word has taken on a whole new meaning, and my capacity to love unconditionally has completely transformed and changed. Like it's just, I'm not the same person I was. Like I used to think I was a pretty loving person, but I realized that I really loved conditionally. It's like I would only love you if you did this, 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 and this, and like I'd be really upset with you if you didn't match my expectations. And now I'm just like, I just love you.
Yeah.
Right? I don't care what you do, and like, you know, nothing you can do can really hurt me because,
That's tough.
you know,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
like I've got that self-love. I know who I am, and like if you're hurting me, it's because you're hurting,
Yeah.
and you just need more love, right? The answer is always more
More
love,
love.
right? And on the weekend, I turned 40,
Yeah.
and I went to
Happy
New York.
belated.
Oh, yeah, you
Happy
don't
belated.
look-
You don't- you actually don't
look 40 at
look
all.
40.
I know, that's what everyone says. And I wanted to mark the birthday as a milestone birthday with something that really summarized,
Synthesizes.
synthesized like this part of my life,
Mhm.
this period of my life, and that's it.
That's
right
awesome.
here. Yeah.
So now
It's
we're
a
coming.
gift from my friend.
That's awesome. Now we're coming down to the last third of the interview. Do you have any other question you want to ask?
I'll bring it up later.
Okay. So the last third of the interview, one of the questions I like to ask is the 1, the 5, and the 25. So where do you see yourself? What would you like to be doing a year from now, 5 years from now, 25 years from
Oh
now?
gosh. Okay, a year from now. Those are good questions. I'd like to have, so an easy goal, I'd like to have finished a huge chunk of writing my dissertation for my PhD. That would be
Dr.
nice to
Simone,
get.
Desimone,
Yeah, that would be nice to get off my plate.
Yeah.
I'd like to do that. That's a goal I have. I'd like to have run successful Teachers on the Rise programs, which is what I'm offering at the studio. Just starting that up. Just working with teachers and trying to get them to kind of get on the love journey and trying to get them into
Oh, is that what?
practice.
Illumina body and so on?
Well, that's my Reiki practice and stuff, but like
We'll talk about that more.
Yeah,
at the end,
I
talk
work-
about it.
I work through Rise,
Yeah.
which is Rise My Body, which is in Oakville,
Yeah.
and so like my personal business is that, but it's affiliated with Rise, but
Oh,
it's
yeah.
kind of complicated. But so I teach. I'm starting a Teachers on the Rise program. I'd like to start a Teens on the Rise program and really work with teens and teach them
Mhm.
about self-love. So I'd like to see that kind of building over
Mhm.
the next year and really
Yeah.
have like at least 2 successful runs of the program. So that's the year one.
Yeah.
5 years from now,
45.
pardon?
45.
I have to remember, man.
What the heck?
When we get to 25, that's going to be, that's not really happening.
Oh my gosh. 5 years from now, I don't know if I'll be teaching still. I'd like to kind of move to maybe consulting. I'd like to be working more full time in like, life kind of coaching. I don't even know what to call what I do, to tell you
Yeah.
the truth. Self-love coach. I don't know. I'd like to kind of take that on a little bit more full time.
Yeah.
And have like the business really kind of flourishing and making like lasting,
Impression.
huge impressions on people and kind of just spreading the love revolution.
Mhm.
And 25 years from now, I would like to have written at least 1 book, if not more, and like live on a farm, have a retreat center where people
What
can
would the
come.
book be about?
About my journey, about love, about self-love, about not being afraid of living and embracing everything. And
I'm curious, you said the book is a 25-year goal and not a 5-year goal. 'Cause I feel like a book should be a 5-year goal.
I got a lot to do in 5 years.
Okay.
There's
I like
just too
that.
much.
She's a busy person.
She's busy,
Yeah.
but she has goals.
I got a lot to do. A lot, personal things I'd like to do. Like I'd
Yeah.
love to, I still, I'm 40, but I still want to have children. Like
Yeah.
these are goals I'd like to have. I'd like to raise a family. These are things I still like to do in the meantime,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right? So, I think 25 years, 1 or 2 books is like a pretty,
A great accomplishment.
yeah, it would be a pretty cool accomplishment. If not 3, I don't
Yeah.
know. I'd love to be able to public speak at some point. I'd love to work with school boards and work with teachers.
Yeah.
And really kind of change the way education is going. I'd like to have an impact there.
Yeah. For the people, okay, you said you're a very loving person. You love everyone now. For the people who don't love, what do you think is stopping them? Because I personally think it's ego. I think ego is like,
What do you mean by ego?
yeah, that's how you judge people. Because you think you're better than
Or is
others.
he better than them?
Yeah. Or vice versa, you don't think you're as good as them, so
Oh, so
you
you
try to bring them down. So what do you think?
It's always your ego.
It's always your ego. If
Yeah.
you're not loving, it's always your ego. And really great teacher right now who I read a lot of his stuff and like listen to his YouTube channel. His name is Matt Kahn, and he's like on a love revolution too. He's
How
like
do you spell
hardcore. Kahn, Matt Kahn.
How do you spell Matt?
K-H-N.
Just Matt.
I know, okay.
Matt K-H-N, okay.
Yeah, Matt Kahn. And the best way I've ever heard ego described was by him, because I've read a lot of books on like metaphysical things and ego and spirituality and all this stuff. He's probably my favorite right now because he talks about the ego as an inflamed nervous system that gets inflamed from a very young age. And by inflamed, it's like, imagine like inflammation, right?
Mm-hmm.
It goes into fight or flight kind of mode, and it never really comes down.
Yeah.
And when it's inflamed for long stretches of time, it starts to behave in unhealthy fear-based ways, because an inflammation is based on fear. So it's like you're constantly feeding fear, which basically creates like your personality, right? It's not who you are, but it creates you, right? It's how you behave. So the purpose of meditation is to like relax the nervous system, to bring down that inflammation. And when you bring down that inflammation, then everything, you come back to who you are, you come back to your state of grace and love and harmony and divinity. Yeah. And it allows you to kind of see your ego, right? And your ego is basically what causes you to act out in fear. Yeah. And anything that's not loving is fear. It's like the opposite of love, right? Yeah. So
it's not hate.
It's not hate. It's fear. Because even hate is fear based, right? So when you can get your nervous system to relax, then it allows you to kind of act more out of love and to see where and when you're acting out of fear and kind of look at it, and you can distance yourself, and that's when you kind of become more of a spectator to a witness to how you're behaving. Yeah. And so to answer your question in a long way, it's your ego. Yes. It's your ego, because the natural state of every human being is love. That's who we are. That's what we're meant to do. Yeah. And if we're not behaving that way, it's out of something else. And that something else is always your ego.
And before you wrap it up, I have one more question. Because I'm not big in social media. Like, I'm not big, but I feel that social media has changed the world a lot. And do you think the kids of today, like you're teaching, the kids of today have a bigger ego than us, or younger, or older than me?
I think they have a lot more fear. So yeah, probably.
So they've got a lot. Are they bullied more? Are they judged more? I think
that they have more opportunities to judge themselves against other people. Yeah. And that's the problem. So that's where like depression's coming in, because they're comparing, right? That's true, they're just constantly comparing and feeling bad about their own lives because they're seeing all of this around them, right?
It's an interesting point you mentioned too, because I know, like you said, you played competitive soccer in high school. I played competitive soccer as well. I played varsity at Western. And I was just thinking, like you mentioned that, like maybe when I was in grade 12, I know, Queen's rivals, I know.
No, I played for Waterloo.
And Queens.
Hated them.
Well, you guys aren't even a rival, so it's not, they're not even our level, man. Like, see, we're on to them, but we're not our so like, don't even think about them. That's my ego talking. That's my ego talking. But so like when I was in grade 12, I know I definitely felt a lot of insecurity about my qualities as a soccer player. But I think the benefit I had was I only compared myself to people on my team and people on teams I played against. Yeah. But if I was in grade 12 now, I'm comparing myself to kids in America, kids in Europe, like all these different people.
You're just watching them every day. Just watching
them every day, highlights on YouTube, like why is this kid going to the NBA and I'm not, stuff like that.
Yeah, and the thing is, what I dislike and resent about social media is that on social media, no one shows the video of them like messing up a shot. Yeah. Right? Oh, yeah. Like that's not what goes on social media. It's like them making the shot, not like the 1,000 times they missed, right? Yeah. Or like, they like who knows how many pictures and selfies they took of themselves before they found the one that they liked, right? Yeah. So like no one really thinks about that aspect, and they just see something they don't have, or see an aspect of their lives that they feel like they need to improve on because they're comparing, and then they feel bad about themselves. Like I have friends who like shut down social media because it caused them to be depressed. I'm like, you got depressed because of social media? I said, why? I'm like thinking, why? Why would social media depress you? And they're like, because I keep comparing. I'm like, like so naive, right?
And
Because that's not what I do.
Yeah, and like that's what I was gonna say too. Like I also feel like whenever people always like demonize social media, I 100% agree. Like these are the negative aspects of social media. I myself deleted my Instagram and my Twitter at one point. I got it back now. I think the other part too is though is like it really does help connect people.
Yeah, I know. That's what I love about it.
Yeah,
Like
it really helps connect people.
But it lowers your productivity. That's also why I deleted it. Like I usually delete my social media during the school year.
It's a tool, right?
Yeah.
It depends on how. Like most of us, I think I would definitely say I'm in this category where I've definitely misused this tool before in the past.
Yeah.
Where I spent too much time on it. This one.
Here we go.
What are those? So what are they doing here?
So that's me running a sound healing meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically we at the start of every year in January, we offer at Rise a vision board party
Mm-hmm.
where people come and create like a vision board for the year. It's very powerful. It's so powerful to put your vision on paper, and then we create our visions, and then we try to manifest them through meditation. So I put them through sound healing, and like sound,
Yeah.
like is an energy, right?
Mhm.
So
Is it kind of like white noise? Kind of.
not really. It's purposeful. It's intentional. So
Oh.
like when I'm doing sound healing, the all the different tools that you see on the table over there, they have a different sound or different pitch. Some of them very
Oh.
strong.
Yeah.
Some of them really, not as penetrating. Some
Right,
can be
right.
very penetrating. So when you're in a meditative state, your subconscious is in a space where it's ready to let go,
Yeah.
right? And that's where all your pain lives.
Mhm.
That's where all your trauma lives. That's where all your limiting beliefs live, in your subconscious. So when you're in a meditative state, it's just allowed to let go. So when I'm playing the sounds and like
Mhm.
banging on a drum, it's like penetrating and like pushing it out. Like some people in that experience will just cry.
I was gonna ask, what's your clientele like? Like, who are these people? How are you fighting? Where are they?
Well, there's a mix. It's mostly women because I find women are more open to going on a spiritual journey than men are, and like really going through a.
I was gonna ask you why is that? One of us is gonna go on a tangent.
Self-discovery.
Yeah.
More men are coming around, and it's mostly people like in their early mid 20s, like
Really?
around.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to anywhere to like age like 65, with the majority being around age, let's say 35 to 45.
I'm sure the people who are more emotional are the later ages.
No,
Is it because
actually,
they've experienced more?
No, they
Oh.
have oftentimes they have a harder time because it's like that many more years of programming.
Yeah.
It's hard to get to. It's
Or
really
certain
easy to work
degrees.
with kids.
Yeah, okay.
To get, like, the younger the person is, the
The
easier
easier
it
it
is to get rid of the programming.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm good. And it's like, okay, see ya.
Yeah.
Right? But, like, when you've got a lot of years of trauma and, like, imagine, like, a person might have gone through something when they were 5
Yeah.
and they've carried the trauma for, like, 60 years.
Mhm.
That's 60 years of building on top of that trauma,
That's
like
very
just
true.
negative pattern upon pattern upon pattern. It's just really dense. It's like a lot of pain,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the sound really helps to kind of push it through, and people really experience profound shifts
Mhm.
and real deep healing when they go through that. It's a pretty neat experience.
So some rounding up questions now. Because we could do some more rapid fire kind of style. But if you
Okay.
want to go deep because I like
Okay,
deep
alright,
answers. I've actually never asked this question before. Like on a podcast, I ask people off camera, like just friends and stuff.
Okay.
But I'm curious to hear what you have to say about this. If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would you pick?
Jesus.
Really?
I thought you were like
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah,
I have a
so-
question.
Then,
Absolutely. I'd be like, show me your tricks.
What would you ask him? Him.
Show me your tricks.
I don't know if she's joking or serious. I think she's serious.
No, I am serious.
Okay.
In a joking way, but like
Okay.
I'm serious. Like that to me is the most interesting person. I want to learn everything I possibly could from Jesus, who was just like the ultimate teacher.
So would you say, because I want to say that's dead, now pick someone alive, but I don't know if Jesus considered still alive?
Yes, for me.
Okay.
I talk to Jesus all the time. He's
Okay, the
like-
physical.
figured you'd say that. So how about
the physical human
A
body?
normal human, non-spiritual human being.
non-spiritual.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
He said
I
Jesus
used
so
to be-
fast. But then
I know.
You're gonna surprise you.
Used to be
Someone who's alive now,
no constraints, anything.
no constraints. Oh my god, I have so many. I can't just pick one.
Okay, just
I
list
would
them.
want to talk to Donald Trump.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh wow.
I would. I'd like to just sit in this space and do some healing.
Oh wow, I like that.
Yeah.
Cause see, most people would like want to change him or like ask him questions. You just want to do some healing, eh?
Yeah, I just
Why do you
want
want
That
say
is
that?
changing him though.
That is true.
I
But why
just,
do you say
want to
that?
send him love, because that's what he needs.
Do you think
think
he's
so?
lacking that?
Yeah.
If you had to like psychoanalyze him, what would you say his personality trait is? Like, what do you think his programming is like? To use your word.
Programming, I think kind of power-driven, arrogance. I see him as a person who's very, very insecure, who has developed his sense of self through all kinds of outside
Yeah.
power sources, and that's why he is the way he is. And I think he's just a really insecure person who needs a lot of love, and I wish that all his like heart's desires were just to come true so that he could just relax.
I would say he could do great things if
I think so too.
if he had a better attitude.
Yeah, you know
Towards
what's funny is like energies, and like our thoughts are energy and our words are energy, and like
Yeah.
I think
He
that
makes
the
things happen.
world is not doing the world any favors by hating on him, because you're
Yeah.
just sending more
For
hate,
sure.
and like he feels it, right? Like
Yeah.
on an energetic way, he feels it, and it causes more paranoia and more angst and more anger and more frustration.
Mm-hmm.
And like the only way to like actually help the guy and allow him to be a great leader, if he has the capacity to be one,
Mm-hmm.
is to love him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Everyone's doing the opposite of what they should be doing. It's like, stop
There's
judging the
nothing I
guy.
can do
Just
anyway.
just send him a little bit of love. Like that's
Yeah.
all you can do, right?
Yeah. Third last question.
Third last question. You got 3 more. Okay, go ahead.
What are you currently obsessed with? So this can be anything, and it can't be anything fluffy like world peace.
No,
or
no,
saving.
no,
It has
no.
to be like
No,
something
I
like
got you. I got you.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah.
Instagram, blog, YouTube, any something random.
What am I
Working
currently?
out.
Manga.
Manga?
That's
Really?
That's not an answer you're expecting.
Yeah. Nothing in the interview are we expecting.
Japanese manga.
Like reading it and everything?
Yeah.
How'd you get into it?
So I really decided in the last 5 years to focus on learning Italian really well, because my family's Italian and I've got friends that are Italian,
Still want to
relatives
see how
that
this
are
is
Italian.
connected to manga. But
Yeah, so one of the best ways, so like I really learned it, went there, spent a lot of time there, started reading Italian, watching TV in Italian, but one of the best and easiest ways to learn the language, to
Immerse
keep up with the
yourself in
language, is to immerse yourself in it. And like, it's hard to read books like this because there's going to be so many words you don't know, but like a manga has pictures. And
Good
it's got a good
context.
story, but then it's just like
Oh.
dialogue, right? It's just dialogue. So
Yeah,
if the
yeah.
people are talking the way they, like the writing is just the way people talk, which is what I want. I
Yeah.
don't need all the different verb tenses and fancy words or whatever. So I was like, I'm gonna try manga, right?
So you read like
So
in
Italian
Japanese?
manga?
I read it in Italian.
Oh,
So you're
I thought
reading
it was
Japanese comics in
In
Italian.
Italian.
Yes.
That's interesting.
That's actually really
Yeah,
interesting.
but now, so like my students are like super into anime and manga, and when they were talking about something,
Yeah.
I was like, hey, I read that book. They're like, what? And they're like, you watch anime? I'm like, no, I don't watch anime, but I read manga. I'm reading The Promised Neverland.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my god, it's my favorite. I'm like, yeah, I'm on book 9. And they're like, I only watched up to book 4. And I'm like, I got you. You know what I mean? So it's like a new common thing that we have in common. So like I ordered them from Italy, like Amazon Italy, and like they come to my house and I read them in Italian, and they're like really good. I don't know if you ever read a manga comic book,
Mhm.
but the storylines
I've read
are
manga back in the
I've read
day.
it, yeah.
the storylines are like excellent,
Yeah.
and they're just so good and easy to read. Yeah.
Man, the world's changing, man.
So you ordered
40
on-
year olds reading manga.
Yeah. You ordered on.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey, 40-year-old. That makes me sound so old.
No, 40 is.
It's a
you
new
still have-
60, guys.
Don't even say how many years she has left.
You have 60 years left.
Okay, 100 is
Or
good.
more.
100
Okay.
oh, yeah,
Or
100
more. Yeah.
This is a random tactile question that I probably shouldn't ask, but you order Amazon Italian on Amazon.it or what?
Yeah,
And so you have to pay like duties and stuff, or how does that work?
you just pay the shipping fee.
And you pay in euros or?
Yeah.
You pay in euros.
Mhm.
Okay. This is any. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Cool.
That's dedication.
But don't you pay like duties though, because it's going across borders?
I haven't.
Okay. Anyway, I'm just curious about that. Second last
He wants to learn
question.
Italian.
Pardon?
You want to learn Italian?
No, I was just curious about. That's so random. Like you're an English person
Yeah, I was.
reading a Japanese comic in
shocks me.
Italian to learn Italian. That's
I
cool.
know. And my students now have all the series. I
Mhm.
bought them for my class all in English, so I've got them in
Wow.
both languages.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
you
it's
bought
pretty
us
cool.
like boring books.
So
I'm kidding.
What the heck?
No, I just
Money I spend on you guys?
I just hated reading them.
I know.
I know.
now he loves it. That's crazy.
I love it.
Yeah. Second last question for you. If someone found any of the stuff you're saying really cool, they want to learn more about Illumina, Rise, Teachers on the Rise, where can they find out about you?
Well, it's all kind of right there.
Yeah.
www.risemindbody.com is a good starting point. It's our website where it has all our programs and stuff like that. We have monthly self-love workshops, which are amazing and transformative. Even just to come to one of those can be very transformative.
Jacob?
Yeah, cool.
It's like it's $55, but then you can come every month for free after that. Like we just want to send the message out. Like we just want to send the message out. Like we're not there to become millionaires. We're on there on like a mission.
Yeah.
And all of us who work at Rise believe in the mission. That it's like kind of divinely planned and we're just surrendered, right? And then we also have like 3 times a year we have a really big 2-day workshop called Journey to Rise, where we've got like about 100 people. It's kind of been growing, and then it's like hardcore. It's like our self-love workshop on steroids. It's like everything. You know, we got really immerse people in like self-love, mind-body practice, and show people how they can do this in their own lives and implement it and make changes. Then you've got my website, illuminabodyandsoul.com, if people are interested in Reiki or it's not the only thing I do. I do EFT, which is emotional freedom technique. It's like a tapping it's an energy psychotherapy actually.
Yeah.
And helps people work through stuff, and so there's lots of different ways, but it's a lot going on.
That's cool. I will link everything in the description below. Okay.
For your last question, you've always been like, you always like help people. You always for helping. Like last time, back in the day, you went to Africa, and talk about that experience, like being never in Africa before. Talk about that.
It was a weird experience.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was a humbling experience because I kind of really questioned why I was there after I left. Like, what were my real intentions, right? I went there feeling like, I'm going to save the world, and then I got there thinking, I don't think these people really need saving. Right? Like, I think they're just fine. And I really started to question my white privilege and why I felt like I needed to go and save people in another country. And I almost left feeling ashamed of myself, to tell you the truth.
Really?
Yeah, it's so weird. I never really shared that with anybody. Wow. But like, I went there with Free the Children, wonderful organization. I think they're doing a lot of wonderful things. But when I was there, it was like the people, us volunteers, we were staying in like this 5-star resort kind of thing in like rural Kenya. Yeah. That's like, as you would know, is very poor. Yeah. And I just...
Was it actually 5-star?
Yeah. It actually was.
Yeah. That's the running else.
Yeah. But it was like, I went there and I just felt wrong.
Yeah.
It's like I'm drinking my bottled water, like walking around this rural part of Kenya where I felt like the people there were like almost like forced to put on a show for us because we're like giving money and helping, and I just didn't like it. I felt like they were being like almost taken advantage of, or just, I don't know, I just didn't feel right about it. And it was very humbling in that way. It was beautiful because there was these women, these Maasai women who didn't speak any English, and they were showing me how to do some beading. And the one woman, we couldn't even communicate, but she like took my hand and showed me how to do it, and it was just so much love that, in that way what I took from it was just how the same we all are, no matter what part of the world, no matter what you have or don't have or what you've been through, that love is love is love is love. And I can love a complete stranger across the other side of the world. So that's what I took away from it. But I did leave feeling a little bit like a privileged white girl who just didn't realize how privileged she was. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel you. I don't know what I feel like a privileged white girl, but I can relate to that in some respects.
Yeah, it was like weird. Yeah.
So final question. This has been great. So I think it's a 2-part question. You can pick the one you want to answer.
Okay. So
it's like, if you wanted to leave the audience, someone watching this, like one final message, what would it be? Or you can answer the question in the sense of a letter to your younger self. So
A letter to my younger self.
Laura.
Yeah.
Laura.
Not Paula.
Laura at 16, Laura at 18, Laura at 10. If you could tell your younger self something, what would you say?
That's probably some of the biggest work I've done on myself is going back to that child self and having this conversation. So.
Wait, what? Did you say you went back to your younger self? Oh, really?
Yeah, you can do it too. You just kind of get in touch with that person and you kind of go back and then you have a conversation with them. It's very healing, actually. Yeah. But if I could, when I do go back, with the things that I say to my younger self are pretty much always the same. It's have fun. First and foremost, have fun, relax. Everything is happening the way it's supposed to happen. You don't need to know the answers to everything, and you're perfect just the way you are.
Self-love.
Self-love.
It's been a deep podcast.
Yeah.
So on that note, Laura, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you
welcome.
so much.
You're welcome. It was such
The
a
answers
pleasure.
were crazy, to say the least.
Not what you expected, I guess.
Definitely not.
Definitely
Definitely not.
No,
Well, I didn't know what to expect either. I'm just like speaking from the heart.
that's
Yeah.
great. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode of Atila TV. Peace.
She ain't gotta tell me what to do with it. I already know. Been knew I had a juice with it. Y'all ain't ready though. Outside, got the vision going. I'ma make it go.